what it means to be a Boy Scout and what that is, and how unique and rare and special it is. Because it seems like he just flew right through and it was easy, and all his friends made it through and everything too. But so what happens to a scout? For every 100 scouts who join scouting, records indicate that rarely will one ever be brought before the juvenile court system.
So far, so good.
Checks and go. Only 2 out of 100 will become Eagle Scouts. 17 will become future Scout volunteers. 12 will have their first contact with the church. 1 will enter the clergy. 5 will earn their church award. 18 will develop a hobby that will last through their entire adult life. 8 will enter a vocation that is learned through the merit badge system. 1 will use his scouting skills to save his own life, and 1 will use his scouting skills to save another life. Scouting's alumni record is equally impressive. In a nationwide survey of high schools, 85% of student council presidents were Scouts. 89% of senior class presidents were Scouts. 80% of junior class presidents were Scouts. 75% of school publication editors were Scouts. And 71% of football captains are Scouts.
Well, Mr. Cunningham, I'll add that he was the Gifted Academy president this year.
There you go.
Okay.
Add to the percentage. Scouts also account for 64% of Air Force Academy graduates, 68% of West Point graduates, 70% of Annapolis graduates, 72% of Rhodes Scholars, 85% of FBI agents, and 26 of the first 29 astronauts were all Scouts. So since it's written, the percentage of Eagle Scouts has climbed to nearly 4%. The Eagle Scout service in 1997 announced the figure was 3.89. So that's out of all the people who actually joined the scouting program, only less than 4% become Eagle Scouts. So it's a rare, unique, and very special award and honor. It's something that you never ever lose. And so I met Mr. Blanchard at the first camp out for me. My son joined several years later after he did, and so we rode to Colorado together in a van. This was when he had camped with him, and what I noticed is how mature he was even at that age, and how respectful he is, and how and just what a great person he was. All the people that were in my van, and as you can imagine, we were driving to, what was that, 14 hours? It's a long trip, stay the night after driving 10 hours, and then drove another 8 hours the next day. So, he just has a special quality about him. He had invited someone into his home, took him on, kind of his vacation as a scout. That's kind of like your special treat. He took someone with him to share that with, and I just really gained a lot of respect for him. I see how he interacts with other kids, his contemporaries, and he's just a really neat guy. It's an honor for me to have met him and been a part of this journey that he's had. And so, even though he makes it look like it's easy, it's really it's a lot of work, a lot of dedication. Also, parents of scouts, they put a lot of effort and time getting them to the events, picking them up, all those kinds of things. So anyway, just with that, I'd just like to say congratulations, Ethan. I know you've got big plans ahead, and no matter what you do in life, you're going to get my vote.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think it was that Louisiana connection that kind of got us started, because he would tell me that on summers he would go and spend time back in Louisiana learning hard work he'd have to, his grandparents would make him do, other family members would put him through, but he always talked about how hot it was. I'm like, well, he couldn't wait to go to Colorado where it cool off. And anyway, because we lived in New Orleans, my family and I, for 13 years, and then made the move over here. But yeah, I was Ethan's scoutmaster for about for 3 years, and when I first met him, coming in as a new scout, he was real quiet, shy, kind of hang out with his friends, and the one thing I remember was that he was not one of those scouts who would always hear his name come up as causing mischief or trouble or something. I'd have to go find out, okay, what's going on, who got hurt, who threw a rock. Ethan wasn't in that crowd, and because he was always just kind of quiet, just would do his thing and take care of everybody else. But as Mr. Cunningham said, going through this video, he just kind of glossed over, I was assistant senior patrol leader for new scouts. Well, that's a leadership position that Scouts have to have a leadership tenure when they're working toward their Eagle rank. And he just kind of glossed over that. Well, that's what that entails is that, a young man that's, 15, 16 years old has to go keep track of a bunch of 10-year-old and 11-year-olds because he's in charge of all these new scouts that come to the troop. And they're basically 5th graders going into 6th graders, and, they're just, it's like herding cats, for 10-year-olds. If you know what I'm talking about. And that was his job. But what I found was he was very good at it. He could get down and speak to them at their level to help get them to do what they needed to do. And one of the campouts I remember was, and I think this was the year you were the assistant senior patrolleer for the New Scouts, was at El Rancho Sima. And it was very hot. It was a very hot camp. And we had some challenging New Scouts that year. There was one that would not go sleep in his tent at night because during the day he could see the spiders, granddaddy spiders in the top of the tent. And at night he would literally scream. Do you remember that? He would scream, and we could not get him to be quiet. And so during at the end of the day, as a scoutmaster, I would get all the boy leadership, and we'd go and sit under a tent and talk about, hey, so what happened today? What was good? What was bad? Who are some outstanding scouts? And any issues that we need to deal with? Who's got ideas how to do that? Well, Ethan would always be the one that would pipe up and start giving ideas. Well, let's do this, or let's do that. Let's handle this scout this way. He was always coming up with ideas, and what I noticed with all his peers, would always listen to him and respect what he said. And what he said was actually really true, and it worked. And I think for that new scout, I think he came up with the idea. It was like, well, just let the scout move his cot from out of the tent and just put it out in the open and just kind of sleep under the stars, because isn't that what we're doing anyways, camping? And that actually is a good idea. And actually, we did that every night. And that scout, as soon as he pulled that cot out, lay down and go to sleep immediately, because he wasn't in that tent with the scary granddaddy spiders, and there would be like literally 20 of them there in a corner. And we tried to shoo them out, but it wouldn't do anything. But I think Ethan was one of the ones that came up with that idea. And what we found that over the course of the week, more and more scouts were pulling their cots out and sleeping out in the open. And I had one of the adult leaders come up to me, and he was like, do you know all these scouts are sleeping out from under their cots? I'm like, yeah, it's keeping this guy quiet at night so we can all sleep, because this kid would scream till midnight and we could not sleep. But Ethan, he had a way with those young scouts, and he just kind of glossed, well, I was ASPL of New Scouts. No, it takes a lot of patience and endurance and some special communication skills to talk to 10 and 11-year-old boys that are in Scouts for the first time. Some of them at a summer camp away from home for the very first time. Believe it or not, some actually spending the night away from home for the very first time in that weekend. We have to keep up with him, and he's in charge of all of that, and he did a great job. And that was those nights that we would get together as leadership and talk about issues of the day and listen to Ethan come up with ideas. I knew then he was a leader, and he could really communicate with anybody at any level, and I was like, that's very impressive. And I always told him, I said, that always stood out to me, because when we came back from summer camp, we had several other campouts. Well, let me back up to summer camp. There was one thing I did notice. Even though he had the job of ASPL, of New Scouts, there were times during the week some of these scouts start to get homesick. And a lot of times as adults, we really kind of watch out for that. But I would notice that he would always find some of those scouts that he kind of thought were feeling a little homesick, and he would go talk to them on his own. He just kind of come off to the side and just kind of talk to them, cheer them up. Well, I never asked him to do it, and other adults ever did that. He always kind of had a heart for that, and I always appreciated that. But as we came back from summer camp, we had other campouts, and one of my last campouts with the troop was doing some canoeing training. He was out there. We were at Mr. Baumgartner's pond, and the boys love to get in the canoe and jump out in the pond in September. It's still starting to get really cool water. But he's out there training the New Scouts himself. He said, "Here, Mr. Robinson, I'll go do it." And he'll get out there in the canoe with them, show them how to paddle, how to swim, and he just took it on his own. He's just going to show the new boys what to do. And I just knew then, like I said, he's a leader. And once I stopped being the scoutmaster and another person took over, then I took on the role of helping scouts, with their paperwork and what it takes to be an Eagle, and helping them through that. And we had a lot of meetings on, helping him on his merit badges, finishing up the paperwork, because the project is one thing; it's the paperwork that drives them crazy, because you have to sit down and type everything out, what they did on their project and what went right. And if you're not familiar with, he just kind of, again, glossed over, I just put a few boards out. No, it's a lot more than that. It takes months of planning where he has to go find a sponsor at the church. What project would you like for us to do? Then they have to prepare a proposal. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my estimated cost. You know, this sounds like this is project accounting. This is what engineers do. That French engineer is going to do one day, right? They have to do this as part of their project of estimating what it's going to cost, how much labor it's going to entail, and then they have to go out and solicit funds. You know, how are we going to pay for this? And then once they go through the project and complete it, then he has to go back and describe, okay, this is what actually happened. This is any accidents we had, safety meetings we had to have. Here's the number of people that worked on the job, and this is what it actually cost me to complete the job. This is how much time it actually took. So he has to do everything from start to finish, and then he has to have the person at the church sign off that says, "I like the project, I accept it." And once you get that approval, you're pretty much done at that point. But it takes literally months to do this, and it takes numerous man hours to get it all done. But the paperwork is the hardest part, and to have a boy sit there and focus, you know, several hours a day typing all that in or handwriting it in, it's like another work project for school is what it is. But it teaches them that value of being responsible to others, and this is kind of like what the real world is like. When you're assigned a project, this is what it's going to be like. And so we went through that process, and he did a great job of getting all his merit badges done, completing that. And you know, in the course of these, we always have time that we can sit down and just kind of talk about life, what's going on in the school, and what's going on with your grades. And you know, one of the things that just blew me away was we were sitting there one morning. I think he was on he called me and he's like, "Hey, I forgot about it. I'm running a little late." He just finished the ACT exam, and so we did some paperwork. And later on, I said, "Well, how'd you do?" And later on another one of our meetings, "How'd you do on the ACT exam?" "Oh, I got like a 32 or something like that. I didn't even study." I'm like, "You did what?" I'm like, because I barely got into school with my grade. I was like, "You didn't study." He you know, is in the top percentile of accomplishments of the ACT exam. I was really impressed. And that told me there, this guy is, I knew he was smart, but he is really smart. And being able to go off to the university and there in Washington, D.C., I know he's going to do great things. I know he wants to do international finances. Those are the last things you were telling me you wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And going over to France and meeting with Kent. Mm-hmm. You know, I could see you being, we're probably going to see you on TV one day, being involved in some international politics or international finance. Mm-hmm. But I want to congratulate you. You did a great job, accomplishing, magna cum laude at school. Mm-hmm. Great accomplishments there. And finishing your Eagle, it takes a lot of hard work. And like Mr. Cunningham said, only 4% of millions of boys that go through the scouting program will achieve this, because once you're an Eagle, you're always an Eagle. And I've told them many times, I've had some of our Scoutmaster adult leaders tell us that when they see Eagle Scout on those job applications, those go to the top of the pile, because they know what it takes to be an Eagle Scout, and it's a lot of hard work. So congratulations, Ethan, and good luck to you in the future at University in Washington, D.C.
It's a big honor to earn your Eagle Award, and like I said, only 4% of boys that start scouting earn an Eagle Scout Award. I can't remember exactly when Ethan first started talking about he was going to earn an Eagle, but I remember it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago, early on. And this whole thing has started, with first grade through senior year, so it's 12 years. It's a long time goal he set. He's accomplished it. So big congratulations to Ethan for that. And it's a big deal. It's also kind of neat because seeing Ethan as he progressed has kind of given me a little chance to reminisce and think about my own time in scouting as an Eagle Scout. And so I guess some of the things I was thinking about recently, like this week, is that not all the skills may stay with you. Like all the you can build a campfire. And I'm not trying to brag, but I can probably still build one match. But compass, I'm horrible with directions. I probably get lost now trying to use a compass. I could probably still put up a tent, but those kind of skills are important. But I think that I could probably fix that chair with basket weaving, maybe. That chair's got some work. But I think the most important things that I think that stick with you are the values of scouting, and I think that's you've heard us as Scoutmaster talk about that. And that's something that Ethan has in spades, is good values. Ethan's got a lot of good qualities. Period. I think that one of his good qualities, of course, is intelligence. We all know that because he reminds us every chance he gets how smart he is. Right, I was reminded of the novel this morning, yes. But most importantly, he's got clearly a good heart. And I think myself, and I'm sure I speak for all of his family and friends, that makes us proud to see how good heart he has. Not with only the younger scouts, and it's great to hear those kind of stories. How he's it's in all aspects of his life. I see how he is with his grandparents and his cousins and his aunts and uncles, and his mom, and his dad, and it's just really, you know, that's the top of the list of the values, and the Boy Scouts helps teach that, and that's something that stays with you. You know, I think that's something that he exemplifies, and also having a good head on your shoulders. I mean, he's got his morals straight. He's you know, a good faith head and a big head, but he's a good influence on others. And that's one thing I think that, you know, I think all of us that know Ethan are confident in, that he's got a good head on his shoulders, he's got a good heart, and he's going, you know, he knows he's got that moral compass, and I think that's something that scouting helps promote and encourage, and I think that's certainly a testament to you know, Ethan and the scouting program as far as, you know, all the traits he's got. So there was one other thing I'm going to read here too that was kind of a, I guess, with respect to his values, but I found it kind of appropriate, but it's on my phone, so I didn't prepare very well. But it says, folks that don't know any better think about Boy Scouts think they spend all their time building campfires and earning badges. But scouting is really about building character and learning life skills. So how well does the program work? Amazingly well. And this is a 2005 survey, I think, by Harris Associates that they're referencing here. But so that the Harris study conducted said, Boy Scouts of America said it found that the vast majority of men who've been scouts for at least 5 years before believe that scouting taught them some pretty important values: to always tell the truth, to be a team player, to take care of the environment, to respect the life and property of others, to take pride in America, to respect the elderly, and to have confidence in their own abilities. In fact, I don't know who's elderly.
That's okay.
But in fact, 99% of those long-term scouts said scouting helps them build character. And it says 99%, perhaps the other 1% weren't paying attention to the question. But it also said that they found many tangible benefits to being in scouting. Former scouts are more likely to own their own homes, more likely to graduate college, more likely to earn high salaries, and they're more likely to attend religious services every week, and more likely to vote in every election and to support charities. And they're also more likely to become leaders, and it references some of the famous people that were Boy Scouts, or Eagle Scouts as well, like Neil Armstrong, Hank Aaron, Stephen Breyer, Supreme Court Justice, Gerald Ford, President, J.W. Marriott Jr., Steven Spielberg, Sam Walton, and Walmart. So, you know, again, that speaks to the long-term values. And actually, speaking of that, coincidentally, in Atlanta just this week, there was a networking event for Eagle Scouts, or former Eagle Scouts that I went to, called Gathering of Eagles in Atlanta. And there was about 150 attendees that came to this event. It was all Eagle Scouts, and it was super interesting. And it was a guy that I met through another networking event that was kind of helped organizing this event. And it was really cool to see in the room, like, Eagles of all ages, you know, people that had, you know, relatively new Eagles versus there was one guy I met that got his Eagle Scout award in 1957. So pretty cool to see that whole range of Eagles in one room at the same time. That's old, yeah. And barely. But it was kind of cool too, is that, you know, we all did this as a group. You know, we're all going to do the Scout oath and the Scout law together. And the entire room of people, 150 people, it was a very loud and demonstrative example. And it was clear, no one forgot it. I mean, even the guy, you know, that got his Eagle Scout in 1957, these people, it sticks with you. The values stick with you once you become an Eagle. I guess you said you're always an Eagle. And, you know, they remember that to this day, and the values are something that, no matter how old you are, it follows you around, and that's something you can retain. So even if the skills don't stay there, the values do. So, and one other guy that's an Eagle too that I thought was interesting too. If you guys have seen the show Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So he's an Eagle Scout. He got a Distinguished Eagle Award, I think, not so many years ago. He's spoken at the national conferences for Boy Scouts.
Right.
So anyway, there was an interesting quote I thought that he had in one of his speeches, but about what scouting's done for him. He said, "Scouting teaches you about difficulty, challenges, and being uncomfortable. So whether it's climbing a mountain or sitting out in the rain, and I would add, as you mentioned too, just sticking with all the things that you have to do in high school, you know, to get all the paperwork and everything, as you've got other competing interests, you know, your grades, applying for colleges, and getting through the Eagle Scout Award, and sticking with it for 12 long years. But it forces you to confront your discomfort and trains you to do things you don't want to do. More importantly, it trains you to like it. And if you can figure out how to like doing a hard thing, you'll do well at whatever you try." So I thought it was a good quote. But anyway, just in conclusion, I just wanted to say, you know, I'm very proud of you, Ethan. You know, it's been a long time, ago you said, congratulations, and very proud of you, along with everyone else. So.